And progress. Here we are. Good morning, Joost. Good morning, everyone.
Hello.
Good evening, Anthony. Okay, good barbecue.
Good evening. On the barbecue, on an evening.
Fantastic.
Still 23 degrees, 7 o'clock at night. Not too bad.
It's a good way to start the weekend. Fantastic. So, another Friday chat. So, Michael is hiding somewhere. So we won't have much of Michael, we suspect. Oliver is still asleep because less than 9 hours of sleep and things don't go. So the three real ones. Here we are. So the subject for today is we got the confirmation of the Australian women coach position could be just been confirmed officially by the Australian Federation. So it would be interesting to have a quick information about who she is, where she comes from, a little bit of on her background. Then we'll listen to you, Anthony, and try to understand how those coaches are chosen. Okay. The third question will be what impact does it have on the rest of the hockey population in that federation, or for the girls at least in that instance. And as a fourth subject, and that's where Joost is the man for today, is we've heard that there was some hoo-ha with the Dutch women, a little bit of pressure. So we don't know if there's some real issues or it's just dealing with competition. But Joost, you'll tell us what you heard. And Anthony, since you've been looking after the girls, maybe your experience on that level. So let's kick it off.
Yeah, okay. So the Australian team coach, Trini Powell, or Trini as she's known, her background, she was born in Canberra in a hockey family here, and her sister played for Australia as well. So Trini was part of that very famous Australian team that won a couple of gold medals in 96 and 2000. Interesting enough, same as Alison Annan was in that same era. So they're both in the same team.
Okay.
And if you go to the Olympic Stadium at Sydney, you'll see a picture of both Alison and Trini scoring goals. So that's quite a long way back through the background. Trini's been a coach around for quite a while here in various situations, and some of it hasn't been very successful for her with various challenges that she's had. In this latest iteration, she took that team to the Japan Olympics. It was after a controversy around bullying and things like this, like the Dutch women have, where the coach stepped out of the picture and she was put in about 6 months prior to the Olympics.
Okay.
So from that point of view, there wasn't a whole lot of time for her to set her mark on that team, and whatever happened at the Olympics happened at the Olympics. So I guess she had a bit of a leave pass around Olympic performance or lack of. So that put her in the main chair in terms of competitiveness for this round of selection. From what I heard, the quality of candidates wasn't great for that position. But I think in the end, because of that limited time that Trini had, she was always the front runner to get that position again, and I give her a 3-year lead into Paris. So that'll be the key test for her in performance in the lead up to and at the Paris Olympics. It helps in Australia here, female in a female team, that helps a lot. And in fact, it's probably a bias leading that way in a lot of sports, that they're putting females into those roles in preference to, one might argue, more preferred male candidates. But they are pushing down the path of getting females to coach female teams if they possibly can. So that's an important component in Australian sport, across a lot of areas in Australian sport. Whether that clouds the judgment or not, I'm not sure, because I'm not involved in that decision making, but I suspect it does cloud the judgment a little bit in what happens. But they are pretty keen to get a lot of females involved in, shall we say, the more elite levels of sport in Australia across the board, and including hockey. And so that's what you see. At the end of the day, they've got a coach in place, and she's got quite a bit of support with Mr. Rick Charlesworth adding a bit of value into the space as well. So he'll help a lot with what's going on. But the quality of players perhaps isn't quite there. And that's probably a systemic issue as opposed to a national team coach issue.
Okay. So the results, what she did in Tokyo, they won all their pool games.
Mm-hmm.
Undefeated by the pool games and almost quite comfortably. It was not. Was there a game where they were on the decider happened really right at the end, or?
Yeah, not really. There was a couple of tough Thueux games, but look, end of the day, the Olympics is kind of two tournaments in one, right? You've got the first half, you've got to qualify for the quarterfinals, and then you've got the knockout games, quarterfinal, semi-final, and final. So you could approach it in two different tournaments almost. And so for her to win all those games in lots of ways doesn't actually matter, right? Because end of the day, all you've got to do is qualify for the next round. And in that team, there were probably two main attacking players that she had in that team, and they were flogged to death in hot conditions. So when it came to key moments in the next round, those players didn't have the legs to be effective, right? And when you've only got two of them, you've got to be really careful about how you manage their load, because you're going to ask a lot more of them in the big games. So that to me was a bit of an oversight by the coach, but it's pretty easy to stand on the sideline and observe, isn't it? You can be the world's best on the sideline. So
no, the question, because when you look at the communication from the federation, they quoted her results in the pool games as a success. And I was just wondering, knowing how things are perceived in Australia, sometimes are you performing along the tournament important, or just the end result?
Yeah, end of the day, it's the end result that matters, right? They will be talking it up from a PR perspective, and okay, that's fine. You do whatever PR you want to do. That's cool, right? End of the day, their funding is linked to results. So everything is about the end result of a tournament, not the mid result of a tournament. That doesn't matter. So you've got they would have had an agreement set of results that they had to get a certain funding level from the government funders. And if they didn't meet that, they would have lost some money. And that's pretty much what would have occurred this time around.
Okay. So,
and the same happened in New Zealand. They didn't get the agreed standard, so they lost some money from the government funders.
They did. This time they did.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, a good one to follow then. And what do you think is the impact on the rest of the hockey population?
Not a lot, unless you're in Perth, where the national program's based. And so what I mean by that is the national program has all of their top 20-something players, whatever number they have in place, 26 players, are all based in Perth. And so because they're all based in Perth, you don't see those players in any other part of the country. And so the impact is really your best players that might be in Sydney are not here. So it reduces the standard of play that you might have in club competitions here. So
what's the distance between Sydney and Perth?
It's about 5 hours on a plane.
Yeah. So that's not an hour and a half driving
No, it's a long way.
Yeah. So that's quite an isolation. Is it something that has been identified or?
It's always talked about as a problem, but the elite squad scenario is what Australia made a commitment to. So, it's an elite squad. That's what they do. The men do it as well. A Dutch model is different. They have kind of clubs that do a lot of that development work, shall we say elite development work. But in Australia, it's a slightly different system. You have a state-based pre-elite model, and then they filter up to the national team.
So do you have players in Sydney that decided not to move to Perth and not participate to the program?
Yes, but you also have players that are not in elite, pre-elite programs that moved to Perth to play club hockey over there. So they're seen by the national coaches.
Okay.
And they get selected. So not only do you lose your national players, but you lose some other players who go over there to play club hockey so they can get picked in national teams, because that's what occurs.
Okay.
So you might have, from Sydney here, we might have 6 or 7, 8 or 9 in a national squad, but we would lose 20 or 25 players out of our club competition because those other players will go to Perth to play club hockey.
And in terms of hockey population, is Perth a big place?
Perth has about just short of 2 million people in a population. Their hockey playing numbers are good numbers. The competition there is pretty good, probably the best in Australia, simply because all the best players are there. So if you have a national squad of 26, right, and then you have another, say 100 players out of the best in each of the states are all there, so you've got 130 players that filter into a club competition of 10 top teams. That's a lot of good players playing in that club competition.
Okay. And are those top players available to play in clubs?
Yes, they play quite a bit. In the lead up to the Olympics, they wouldn't play as much, but generally they play more than half a season of games. They would play 3/4 of the games.
Because that's the lead to the next question. So we've heard that there was some report of abuse within the Dutch women's team, a small team, the squad, the whole squad.
Yeah.
And we suspect that a lot of it comes from 3 major clubs that are not happy not to have their players available, and are trying to put a bit of pressure on the national team to get their players back. Is that a fair interpretation? Maybe Joost or Anthony?
I think then you know more than me, because what we heard, and I've heard the article in the news.
Yeah.
I will give you a good feeling about it. They find out that there was not a good feeling in the climate, team climate, in the last couple of years. Some players told that to the newspapers, and now they also bring that to the federation. They have now one trust person. I don't know if that is a good word. Who's arranging everything, and let me check. Yeah, some players had critics about what I told the climate of the team, and there's they're searching out what is happening, why it's happening, but the federation is saying this is not the situation we want to. So it's really important to search out what is the problem. Mostly about the prestate, how you say that, the winning climate, about the atmosphere in the team, and the team together, the working together atmosphere in the team. It will be searched by somebody who is not in the team, was from another
Independent.
Independent person. And also the federation is also doing intern research, not only that way, but 2-way research. And they will talk with all the players, the coaches, the staff, everything to check out what is happening. That is the thing, what we know. We know not something about more clubs, and that's not for us what we know.
Okay, so is it so it's important to understand the way that it's being reported. Are we talking about some bullying, a little bit like Nike Oregon Project kind of bullying, where people who were not taking the doping that Salazar was asking them, allegedly, were being sidelined?
Actually, he's lost his job, hasn't he?
Well, there's well, but he's still protected by Nike, but that's a different question. But
that'll be
is that
that'll be protecting their reputation, won't it?
Oh yeah, but so is it something like very heavy where there's some really strong incidents, or is it just because
I really don't know. For me, the news came yesterday. No, the day before yesterday, and Wednesday, and it was also like, huh?
So, but is it what you can tell us? The report, the way it's written, are they saying there's some concerns? And because the Dutch team is so important to the hockey team is so important to the country, it raises alarms, or is there some really heavy incidents happening?
I think it's news. What is different than COVID news? So I think people like to read something else. I think that's the thing.
Okay.
I think nobody cares about the teams because it's the Dutch team. So only in that group of people, it's important. I don't know. I really don't know what's happening. And
it's interesting, you know, because that team won, right? So when you win, it tends to cover over a lot of evils. Yeah. And so when a team talks like that, when you've won, so that could be a little bit of crybaby stuff because you didn't play or weren't selected or didn't play as much or didn't play your favorite position, or it could be real proper, you know, issues.
Yeah.
And how much of the players playing now? Because now the pro league's on, so there's a bunch of players now out, different players. I know that, but you know, and you see, you know, one of the players gets injured badly. That's going to put a big dent on it. What's the issues around that injury? Are they blaming the Olympics for that injury?
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of factors in it.
So given your experience with coaching women's team, Anthony, do you see a difference between men's and women's in addressing that kind of either pressure? Because that's what it sounds like. It's at the moment is unless we hear otherwise, but it sounds like it's just people that need to deal with the pressure of competitiveness. Is there a difference between women's and men's teams to deal with that, which could mean that it's actually more important, that thing is more important within a women's environment than the boys' environment?
Yeah, absolutely. There is a difference. Boys, and I talk about perhaps more Australian boys are more likely to take on a challenge and say, "Fuck you, I'm going to do this." You know, girls are much less likely to do that and much more likely to internalize issues until it might explode at some point. For it could be the smallest reason, and so some of these things could be not known at all by any of their coaching staff, and then all of a sudden they read something in the paper and they're going, "Bloody hell, you know, what goes on there?" So it's really hard to know without being in that environment, seeing that team, and even being, you know, close-ish to them and observing the way they interact in situations. You couldn't really tell because you'll get girls who will complain bitterly if they think they should have been playing more and stuff like that, which boys don't do. Right? And that'll be their opinion. I think I should have played more, or I only played 10 minutes and she played 15 minutes in the final, or, you know, that sort of thing can occur with women's teams.
So that comes back to Michael mentioning that he had to give the equal amount of passes to Rick Charlesworth, and who was on the other side?
Oh, there's a couple of players on the other side, but Terry Walsh or
yes,
Mr. Hazelhurst was the other one.
Oh yeah, yes, that's what he said. Peter Hazelhurst and Rick Charlesworth, and Michael had to give the exact same amount of passes during the game, otherwise he would have had a near fall.
Yeah, and that happened with Australian players a lot. You know, when I played in club hockey, Corbett was playing in my team, and he was an absolute star player, right? He could score goals from anywhere. His first test match was against New Zealand as a 16-year-old, scored a goal, brilliant. He just abused me when I didn't pass him the ball. And I go, "Fuck you, you're not getting it the rest of the game." So I looked at him and said, "No, you're not getting it," and didn't pass it to him the whole game. So you don't do that to me, right? You want to get the ball, be nice. He didn't do it again, right?
I think we can conclude on that, but so that means that we need to follow up. So we need to chase Michael, who promised that we would be able to talk to Alison. But let's see if we can ask this a good question. We can ask her and see what's a version of. of the
He may not
story.
want to talk, of course, because of that situation. So, you know, that situation has probably been coming for a couple of weeks now.
Yeah.
And so she may not want to talk because of that and stay out of it,
Okay.
unless at the risk of causing some damage. But we might see if we can get Rick Charlesworth on, who can talk about his whole drama. Because if you talk to him now, he'd say he couldn't coach in modern people because they're too soft for him. So that would be his view now.
Well, let's work on this then. Let's not make any promise, unfortunately. So the
No.
Addison is on standby for now, but yeah, Rick Charlesworth would be gold. I mean, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, he's interesting.
I think we can conclude on that. Joost, do you want to say anything more?
I'm okay.
Okay, well, Joost, have a good weekend. You've got a few games left.
Yeah, we need to win 2 more, and then 2 more, and then it's winter.
Indeed.
You got 4 games before the winter break, do you?
Yes. So if I win tomorrow with my U team, then we play on the second, not the highest league, but one below.
Right.
And with my other team, it's Sunday. If we are 6 points already from number 2 away, so it's good.
Okay.
Perfect. Well, last weekend of hockey for us in France, and then it's the winter indeed.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
on this, thank you very much, everyone. So coachingstations.com, Tribaal, Hockey Source, Mosquito, Tempest, Hockey People, and Joost, you're here. Tell us about your brand.
No, I'm shy to say my brand. You get the credits today.
No, you can tell your brand.
I'll look up your brand, see what's going on.
Yeah,
I'm Identity Hockey.
Identity Hockey.
I'll
Perfect.
look it up.
Like identity.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, we'll conclude on that. Everyone, have a good weekend, and we'll talk very soon.
See you.